Greetings and welcome to Brother Bart's Conspiracy Corner News. Remember, half of all crimes are conspiracies. Half are done in the heat and the emotion of the moment, and half are plotted out in advance, making them conspiracies. So those who would like you to ignore half of the crimes being committed in the world are simply those perpetrating the deceptions in the first place. One of those deceptions is whether or not we went to the moon. And I'm trying to condense in as short a video as possible all the major proofs that I have to that fact. Where to begin? Well, I guess I would just begin with this one photograph. Here's a picture I took, actually it's a video, that I took out in my neighborhood. This is taken in sunlight, right? So remember, conditions on the moon are in sunlight. And this is what sunlight does. The sun's about 93 million miles away, so the shadows it's going to cast, it being 1 million times bigger than the Earth, it's going to be the same on the entire continent, right? So if the pictures on the moon are taken in sunlight, as it's claimed, then all the shadows will always run parallel and will never intersect with one another. And here we have Apollo 17, last mission to the moon. This is just the perfect example. You've got the astronaut shadow going at 12 o'clock here, and you got a rock about 5 feet away going at 9 o'clock. Now, I've never heard any explanation for this. All the we went to the moon people say they basically have ignored it until recently because it so blatantly contradicts that it was taken in sunlight. I'll show you in a minute. It was definitely taken with electrical light. So they have to explain, the anomaly. Otherwise, it means we didn't go to the moon. So they say this tiny little Earth, and in most of the pictures, it was like this big over the astronaut's head here, is somehow causing the shadow. Well, the Earth shine off the ocean from 250,000 miles away. I don't think it's going to compete with the sunlight on the moon, which is 20 times brighter. It's like flashing a sunlight flashlight out in sunlight. The flashlight's not going to show up. Then they say, well, the reflective surfaces. Well, if that were true, it would be diffused fill light, and it would bounce off the surface straight up. So if there were any shadows, it'd be on the ceiling. These shadows are the same length. This is about, the same length of the astronaut, about 5 feet. And the rock's about, I don't know, whatever dimension this is. Let's say 2/3 of a foot from here to here, and there's 2/3 of a foot shadow, right? So whatever's casting the shadow is a light, and it's the same light because they each have the same length. And it's not, sunlight, which would be parallel, so it's an electrical light. So here's a segment that they intended to use to debunk us folks who say that the moon landings were a government forgery. I want you to watch it first, and then we'll just take a little analyze look here.
To test these conspiracy claims, we relied on our own technical knowledge as filmmakers to create a lunar set. We chose the Trona Pinnacles, a desert area 4 hours from Hollywood, the home of movie making. Our moon set will be used as a backdrop, not to fake our own lunar landings, but to challenge the hoax theories. And though we can't duplicate the intensity of the sun here in the night desert, our single studio light is powerful enough for our experiments. By testing some of the most famous conspiracy arguments, can we put the lunar fraud theories to rest once and for all? The morning after the shoot, the negatives are developed at a professional processing laboratory in Los Angeles.
In our experiment in the desert, we shot a variety of photographs using different film formats. In this 35mm photograph, we see that the shadows of the crew members in our single light source very distinctly converge together. In fact, there's almost a 90-degree difference in the apparent shadow direction.
These results directly contradict the conspiracy claims. The results of our photographic experiment appear to be overwhelming.
Okie dokie. Well, where to begin? So first of all, they went to a desert at night. But remember, the pictures on the moon are supposed to be taken with sunlight, not with electrical light, right? Okay, so let's go back to that National Geographic film here.
And though we can't duplicate the intensity of the sun,
but they can. They could have duplicated the sun by going there 12 hours later and shooting the exact same scene in sunlight, because that's the conditions on the moon, right? Sunlight here, right? And not sunlight, electrical lighting here. So take a look at their conclusion. They went to a desert at night rather than shooting sunlight in sunlight. They're trying to duplicate the moon pictures, which were supposedly taken in sunlight, and they do it with an electrical light rather than in sunlight. And here are the results that they get.
In this 35 millimeter photograph, we see that the shadows of the crew members in our single light source very distinctly converge together. In fact, there's almost a 90-degree difference in the apparent shadow direction.
Okay, so they're saying, look, this is normal that the shadows intersect, right? Because they're about to say,
these results directly contradict the conspiracy claims.
Okay, they directly contradict the conspiracy claims. It actually proves the conspiracy claims, right? They're saying this looks normal, the shadows intersect in our example of the moon, therefore the point of the people like myself, it's not true. But wait a minute. They duplicated the moon pictures with electrical light, which means that the moon pictures were also taken with electrical light. You see, he says they intersect at almost 90 degrees. And how did they intersect at almost 90 degrees? From an electrical light source. See, the shadows are the same length there because they're coming from the same light source. But when one person stands on the left of the light and one person stands on the right of the light, compared to the million times bigger than the Earth's sun, that's why they intersect, because they were taken with electrical light. So they said this completely contradicts the conspiracy claims when it actually proves the conspiracy claims. There's so many reasons why they did not go to the moon. First of all, the rocket did not have enough fuel. Here's from an article which I'll link below in the description of this video. This is von Braun, who built the rocket to go to the moon. Okay? And this is what he said it would take to go to the moon. It is commonly believed that men will fly directly from the Earth to the moon, but to do this would require a vehicle of such gigantic proportions that it would prove to be an economic impossibility. Calculations have been carefully worked out on the type of vehicle we would need for the non-stop flight from the Earth to the moon and return. The figures speak for themselves. 3 rockets would be necessary. Each rocket ship would be taller than the Empire State Building, or 1,250 feet, and weigh about 10 times the tonnage of the Queen Mary, or 800,000 tons. So the Saturn V rocket weighed 2,500 tons. Okay? And there was only one of them and not 3 of them. It's a difference of 32,000%. And this is the person who says that the rocket can reach the moon, when in fact it's only 1/32,000th or 3,200ths, the proper size. He said you'd have to build a space station first to go to the moon, and we have a video of that.
Here to reveal a plan for a trip around the moon is the chief of the guided missile development at the United States Army's Redstone Arsenal, Dr. Werner von Braun.
A voyage around the moon must be made in 2 phases. A rocket ship taking off from the Earth's surface will use almost all the fuel it can carry just to attain a speed great enough to balance the pull of gravity. Unpowered, it will then keep circling the Earth in an orbit outside of the atmosphere. This is the first phase. However, If we can refuel the ship in this orbit with fuel brought up by cargo rocket ships, it can set out on the second phase, the trip around the moon and back. To facilitate this refueling operation, we will establish an advanced base in the orbit, 1,000 miles above the Earth. This advanced base, or space station, will be headquarters for the final ascent to the moon.
Okay, so there you have it. You need to have a space station built first in order to go to the moon, right? Okay. Now here's an article worth taking a look at here. This just came out from an English newspaper. It says, let me just zoom in on this and make sure you see this nice and clear. It says, moon landing. NASA chief admits why Apollo 11 era technology cannot land on the moon. NASA chief admits Apollo 11 technology cannot land on the moon. Well, it says, hey, the moon landings are real, but it says that's equipment that worked so successfully, it won't work today. Okay. What was the heading of that again? It says, NASA chief admits Apollo 11 technology cannot land on the moon. We can't use it now because it won't work, but it worked back then, 50 years ago on the very first attempt. So here's a biplane. I think this is from the early 20s, about the time Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic. Well, that was, I think it was 1927, but basically 50 years after Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic, you had this beautiful plane here, right here, the 747. Look, it's 2 stories. You ever ridden in one? I have. It's like 4 houses getting off the ground. I don't know how they do it. It's incredible. It took actually a year and a half longer to develop than the technology to go to the moon, which was done a decade before it. So the technology to do the most outrageous technological claim, and no plane had ever worked on its first flight ever in the history of aviation. You know, the Wright brothers took, I don't know, several tries to get off the ground. The 747 right here, it took 162 engine designs before they could lift that fuselage off the ground. But the most complicated equipment of all time, going to the moon, worked on the first time. But they can't do it today. Okay. And then here's an interesting clip here I think you'll like. This is from an astronaut, a NASA astronaut. Let's hear what he has to say here.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Okay, so they destroyed the technology to go to the moon. You know that's never been done in the history of the entire world. Never in the history of the world have they done a breakthrough like the first automobile or the first airplane or the first nuclear reactor, and they deliberately destroyed the technology afterwards. It's never happened before in the history of the world. It's also never happened before in the history of the world that a technological event like Lindbergh flying across the Atlantic, that no one could repeat 50 years later. They could do it 50 years ago, but they can't do it today. That's never happened in the history of the world either. Here's a B-52 aircraft. My dad flew on this for about 15 years. B-52 was invented in 1948, 72 years ago. And there's about 200 of them still in service today because nothing does a better job. Look at this, 8 engines going on here, 3-story deck on the inside, carries several tons of bombs, can be mid-air refueled, so it can stay in the air for 3 days at a time. It's really remarkable. And it's still in use today. It's over 70 years old. But the moon technology that worked on the first occasion with 1960s technology, they deliberately destroyed that technology. I want you to take a look at something here. everyone's heard of the Zapruder film now with the internet and everything, but originally it was not broadcast. When Kennedy was killed and they did newscasts of it, they did not broadcast the Zapruder film. It was too shocking or something. So Dan Rather up here in the right-hand corner told us what it, described. And he says the exact opposite of the truth. You'll see Kennedy has already been shot once here, is about to be shot from the front, which means Oswald, who's supposed to be behind him, did not do it. So Kennedy's head will go back, okay, toward his back. But Dan Rather says, and, we're not showing it to you, but let me just assure you what it says. He says his head goes forward so that we can frame Oswald. Okay, just take a look at it. It's unbelievable.
In the next instant, with this time Mrs. Kennedy apparently looking on, a second shot, the third total shot, hit the president's head. His head could be seen to move violently forward.
Okay, it's going violently backwards, and he lied and said the exact opposite of the truth. Because if he tells the truth, it means Oswald did not kill Kennedy. So he lies because they want to frame him. Well, who killed Kennedy? Figure that out for yourself. It only takes about an hour to figure out, study that the CIA did it, the same one who's faked the moon landing. Now, back when I was a kid, remember I was 4 years old during the moon missions, and I thought they were the greatest thing on Earth. My dad was in the Air Force. He gave me a picture packet of them. I had them on my wall for 10 years. I practically worshipped them as idols. Amazing. Eyes wide shut. Okay, so here's the national anthem. Back when I was 4 years old, I was asleep when they allegedly walked on the moon. But they, there was no 24-hour TV. They,
our national anthem.
They had it at 1 o'clock in the morning until the morning show at 5. It went dead air. And they would have the national anthem here. You see what so proudly we hail. It's a beautiful song. Although America is probably a better one for national anthem. But anyway. So, blah, blah, blah. You see, I'm a filmmaker. Been doing that for 35 years. My job is to make fake scenes look real. That's why I noticed that the pictures were fake. Taking an electrical light, that's my specialty. So the rocket's red glow. You see the letters kind of trickling across there at the bottom. Let's just skip ahead here. This is in slow motion. Okay? This should scare you to death. Believe in government rebellion is not tolerated. Obey, consume, obey, consume. Trust the government. Government is watching. Remember, it's government God. Is real, so it's the government is supposed to be the God. Believe in government God. Here it is. Believe in government God. So this is what we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. And now here's the number one proof in my mind that we didn't go to the moon. As much as the 90-degree shadows, that's probably even more proof, but you're about to see it in front of your eyes. Here's a reel I got that had the wrong label on it. I was the only reporter who went through every single footage from the first moon mission. I figured if they fake it, I didn't know if it was, fake or not. I thought it might be. I figured they made a mistake the first time they faked it. So I went through everything, and all the reels were the same thing, edited over and over again. Second to the last, I pop in this reel that says, not for general public distribution. And so my critics, after the film came out, says, oh, it's widely available. It says here it's not, and it never came out until after my film was out, and then suddenly other people release it after that to say it means nothing. You decide for yourself. This is what convinces most people that the moon missions were fake. This is an image from NASA, okay, that they claim is the Earth floating in space. This was taken about a day and a half, 2 days into the mission. And this is allegedly them having the camera up against the window, the lens literally against the glass, to shoot a little Earth far away with black space around it. See, this is the black space, allegedly, and here's the circular Earth to show, hey, we're going to see how far away the Earth is. We've left Earth orbit. 50 years later today, they cannot leave Earth orbit. We'll go into that a little bit later. Not only is this the only unedited tape, except one other we'll get into at some future point, there's also an unknown track of audio on the tape. There's NASA, saying, hey, Apollo 11, the TV picture looks great. You'll see that there's 4 seconds of dead air. Then you hear a third channel of audio right on top of the microphone. No radio EQ like NASA and the astronauts, and they say, talk. So they made the astronauts wait 4 seconds before they responded to a question because they're still in Earth orbit, which is, what a surprise. 50 years later, they can't leave Earth orbit, but they're pretending to be halfway to the moon. So if this were the Earth and the moon is up here, then it would take, second and a half to come back, plus all the analog equipment. They estimated 4 seconds delay. It'd probably be more like 8 back then, or maybe more. Even today in New York and Los Angeles, you see two, an anchored news person talking to a person in New York, and it's like a 2-second delay, and that's here on Earth going, 2,000 miles. But they were estimating it. So you hear NASA say, hey, the picture looks great. And then you'll eventually hear Neil Armstrong respond, but he's prompted with talk after 4 seconds go by. He had an earpiece in, this secret tape. They had the third track of the CIA. Just listen.
Oh, Apollo 11, Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over. Okay, Roger.
So let's just listen to that one more time.
Oh, Apollo 11, Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over.
But you see that this is really the window of the spacecraft. The camera is really back away from the spacecraft, back here, about 8 feet, maybe 10 feet away. All 3 spacecrafts are coupled together here. And this is a circular window. And originally I said it's part of the Earth outside. Well, it really is, because the Earth, covers this whole area. They're in Earth orbit. And this is backlit. I think they put a photograph of the Earth shot from an unmanned probe and backlit it with Earthshine. But anyway, this is what they claim. Here's part of the record which proves the lie, because they're about to lie.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Okay, so he just claimed, and that's in the record, Neil Armstrong saying, this is 130,000 miles out, right? Okay. Let's just put that over here and bring up this next clip here. Here's a mistake where the arm of an astronaut, I think it was Neil Armstrong's hair from his arm getting in front of the window here. You don't need to hear the audio here, but you'll take a look at it here. See, there's this getting in front of the window. They never showed that, but we have the unedited version, you see. And so that's either the arm of God moving across the Earth, right? Or it's a model of the Earth, which you'll see in a second, beyond a doubt that that's what it is. Remember here, they're saying this is 130,000 miles out, right? Let's take a listen.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Okay, so this is 130,000 miles out. And here is the same picture over here. This is the unedited reel, okay? So here's what, according to the NASA record, is 130,000 miles out. And then here's the exact same thing, the Earth floating in space. But this is This is the unedited version. They actually hit the stop button, and there's a flash. They had manual buttons, and the flash was the electric current almost connecting, but the button didn't stop it. It kept recording, revealing the true identity of the window. Okay, so here's a work light up here of them. You know, they have it diffused. They turned out all the lights so it would be mainly dark. They put a little crescent piece of material into the window to look like the Terminator line between night and day. And you'll see they're starting to take away the screen here from the window. In fact, let's just make that full screen so you can see this really well. Okay, so that's them moving the stuff from in front of the window, removing part of the screen or the photographic effect. And then here it is when they open up the iris, and the camera has been at the back of the spacecraft the entire time. Neil Armstrong said that they had the lens at the window, but in fact it was the window all the time doing an effect. So you have that here. Here's the Earth 130,000 miles out, and here when they thought the tape was stopped recording, when it kept recording anyway. You'll see another example of that later. And you realize it's just the circular window of the Earth in Earth orbit, and you're seeing part of the Earth out the window, or a photograph of the Earth backlit from Earthshine. They're removing it away. They're getting ready. They're about to open up the iris, and you see that, in fact, the camera has always been at the back of the spacecraft, and it's an effect. They're pretending to be halfway to the moon when they're still in Earth orbit. Now, why would they be doing that? Well, that has something to do with the Van Allen radiation belts. Most people don't know this, but high above in the atmosphere, starting at about 1,000 miles and extending another 25,000 miles, is this field of radiation. Every manned mission, you know, Skylab, the Space Shuttle, Soyuz, Mercury, Gemini, they were all below the radiation, except going to the moon. You'd have to go through it. And you're about to see from NASA. This is amazing. Here's a NASA guy in his 20s, you know, inadvertently saying that the radiation belts are deadly and that the technology to go through them has yet to be invented. It's really amazing.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
Okay, so this is the Orion spacecraft that goes into the radiation belts unmanned about 4 years ago with 2 Geiger counters on board. And they're specifically testing the radiation levels, the lethality of it, and you'll see.
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion.
And not to mention human beings if you have people on board.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back.
Now, it's amazing because a lot of the critics of the truth that we didn't go to the moon say the radiation belts are deadly. But they went up through the North Pole, which is not true. According to NASA's own press releases, they orbit this way, and this is the exact same way the Orion does it. They don't have enough fuel to zigzag around to go through. They barely can get into Earth orbit with all the fuel they got to get off the ground. So they leave right through it. Orion leaves right through it. Apollo leaves right through it. Apollo admits they leave right through it. Now, these fanboys and girls say they went around it, but that's simply admitting that the radiation is deadly. Because look at a 1969 press kit. They say they went right out the equator.
But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. Did you hear that?
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space, meaning that the technology to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts has yet to be invented. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. That's why they're faking being halfway to the moon, because they cannot leave Earth orbit because of the radiation. Plus, they don't have enough fuel. So they're faking being halfway to the moon, right? That's what they're doing here. They're faking being halfway to the moon. That means they did not go halfway to the moon, right? They cannot leave Earth orbit. And look at them. You know, it's a model of the Earth. They cannot go halfway to the moon because they're faking being halfway to the moon, which means that they did not go to the moon. They cannot leave Earth orbit. And what a surprise, 50 years later, they still can't leave Earth orbit. And the guy just admitted the technology to go through the radiation has yet to be invented. Here's another NASA employee admitting this fact. Listen to this very carefully. It'll blow your mind.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
To do that eventually? To do what eventually?
The moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
He hopes to eventually go to the moon. China says it's going to take them until like the year 2032 to go to the moon. It's going to take twice as long to go to the moon than Kennedy's goal of 50-year-older technology today, because you need to build a space station first, you know? And you, oh my goodness. Well, let's just move on. And I mentioned that there was one other incident in which microphone was left on accidentally, or things were recorded accidentally, you know. You probably have heard of astronauts gone wild when I got punched by Buzz Aldrin for calling him a liar, a coward, and a thief. Which he is. And so am I. Everyone's lied and stolen and been a coward. I've just tried to repent of it, you know, and he makes a living off of it. And it was disrespectful to talk to him that way. He's older than me. I shouldn't have said that. So I apologized, and, you know, no big deal. This is another astronaut, Edgar Mitchell, you're about to see. This is in his living room. And when I asked him to pop a tape of his on the screen of his great mission, he accidentally put in a tape of the fake moon landing, showing my footage here of the fake window shot. He was keeping up with the latest scoop on how we didn't go to the moon, and he was concerned about it enough to have the tape on top of his VCR, in his VCR. In any case, I'm asking him here about the window shot. I guess he can just see what happens.
That in the top left. If that's the Earth, is that like another spacecraft?
No. That, I have no idea what that is. It's some aberration on the film of some sort. Oh, those are shadows, I think. Or reflections, probably reflections that are just reflecting.
Run that back again so we get another shot of it.
If you're going to press me on this, I'm not going to talk to you anymore, because I won't pursue this. All of this attempt to say the Apollo programs were fake is just sheer nonsense, and you can talk till hell freezes over, and you're wrong. Okay?
Well, would you affirm...
I won't continue on this line.
Would you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
You bet your sweet ass.
Okay, put your left hand on the Bible. Put your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand and say, I, Edgar Mitchell.
I, Edgar Mitchell.
Affirm.
Affirm.
Under penalty of eternal damnation.
I don't believe in that, but penalty of eternal damnation.
That I walked on the moon on Apollo 14.
That I walked on the moon on Apollo 14.
Well, you know, you're the first astronaut to do that. We asked 6 other astronauts to swear on the Bible, and they refused to do it.
Well, I don't particularly like to take oaths like that either, because I don't accept the Bible as the gospel of anything except a historical record. But we did go to the moon. You bet your sweet ass we went to the moon. Okay, turn off the camera. Your interview is done. I've given you all the time I'm going to give you.
Okie dokie. Good to meet you.
I don't say it's a pleasure.
I understand.
Please get your ass out of my house.
Okay.
And you came here under false pretenses, and I think you're an asshole.
Well,
and if you continue this, and if you press us, I will personally take you to court.
I hope that you do. I invite you to. I'm going to give you my card so you can arrange that. And I'm encouraging you to arrange.
You're frankly not worth it.
No, we have you on the record saying you'll take me to court. I hope you do. Because we have proof that would prove it in a court of law that Apollo 11 didn't go to the moon. And I think it's something that you should see it. I don't say that lightly, believe me. I don't say it lightly.
You have joking, sir. People can have fun. And maybe do that if they feel like they want to have a little fun on a trip to the moon. And as an independent producer,
okay, we're heading out.
Doing that is against moral ethics.
Lying about going to the moon is a satanic lie of gigantic proportions.
I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you get...
I'm heading out. I appreciate it.
And get the hell out of my house. You'll get a gun and shoot them at them before they get out of the office?
We have a video camera running if you want to do it.
Right.
That would be great footage for us. See you later. In court, I hope.
You want to call the CIA? Have them whacked.
Okay, so I was just threatened to be assassinated by the CIA. We accidentally left the microphone on him and all the hullabaloo of being kicked out, door closed. These things work for half a mile. My cameraman's inexperienced. He puts the camera on the back seat of the rental car and it keeps recording. So we pick up the audio of the son of the astronaut suggesting they call their, I guess, special friends at the CIA, want to call the CIA and have them waxed or assassinated. Now, if they really went to the moon, and I'm just believing in fantasy, why would the CIA have to be called to have me assassinated? I don't know. Oh, did I mention to you? Here's a great joke. You'll like this one. It's a Bart original. How many CIA agents does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, I can tell you, but then I have to kill you. Here's the most famous picture of allegedly a man on the moon. Now, this is one of the earlier prints because they color corrected it, because there's even one that I'm having a hard trouble finding. This is one color, it's a brown. And right here it changes to blue. You can see blue to brown, brown to blue. Right there going across. See that? Right there. Brown, a yellow in this color, kind of yellowish brown. And right above that blue, because this is the wall behind them. They have like real landscape going up to like a hill, and then they've got it over here, this line where it becomes a wall. Let's hear what Neil Armstrong had to say. This is on the 25th anniversary. Let's see what he says here.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
And look at him, truth's protective layers. What does that mean? And with this kind of sad scowl for that being the state of things. And here's their picture at the press conference where they had to have teleprompters to remind them how it was to walk on the moon. Does this look like a Super Bowl victory or the funeral of your mother? Photograph is worth 1,000 words. This one's probably worth about 75 billion. Well, 175 billion actually, which is the dollar equivalent of what it cost in today's dollars to go to the moon, or to not go to the moon. Did Congress and Senate vote to fake the moon landing? No. So whoever did it, they're the ones who really run the country. And I thought I would end with these quotes, which are in the article I wrote about the moon landing fraud, which will be linked in the description of this YouTube video. The bitterest truth is better than the sweetest lie. All truth passes through 3 stages. First it is ridiculed, then it is violently opposed, punches and kicks. It's unbelievable. Finally, it is accepted as self-evident. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle, or lie, has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Carl Sagan. Here's an interesting one by Mark Twain. It is easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Because that's pride, you know. Pride is the unwillingness to be wrong, just as humility is the willingness to be wrong. And the great thing about being wrong is you're not walking around in error, and you're learning something new. And at the end of the article are these quotes. Tell my people their transgression, their mistakes, their sin. Kennedy had a 68% approval rating after the failure of the Bay of Pigs because he told the truth. He said, it's my fault. Tell the people their transgression. Tell the people the truth. God opposes the proud, yet gives grace to the humble. Apollyon, the original of Apollo, means the devil or deceiver. Oh, Revelation 9:11. The painful truth from a friend is better than flattery from an enemy. Have nothing to do with the deeds of darkness. Instead, expose them. Each of you, for themselves, by themselves, and on their own responsibility, must speak. And it is a solemn and weighty responsibility, and not lightly to be flung aside at the bullying of pulpit, press, government, or the empty catchphrases of politicians. Each must, for themselves alone, decide what is right and what is wrong, and which course is patriotic and which isn't. You cannot shrink this. To decide against your convictions is to be an unqualified and inexcusable traitor, both to yourself and to your country. Let them label you as they may. If you alone of all the nations shall decide one way, and that way be the right way, according to your convictions of the right, you have done your duty by yourself and by your country. Hold up your head. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Oh, Mark Twain again. The truth will set you free. This is Brother Bart, Conspiracy Corner News. Remember, half of all crimes are conspiracies. So don't let people think that by looking for a plot behind a crime that you're stupid when in fact you're intelligent to try to figure out the riddles of this lost world. Anything less than immortality is a complete waste of time.